Welcome to Leadership Matters, a podcast from the Bailey Group. I'm your host, Kaylee Thomsen, president of and partner at the Bailey Group, where we believe better leaders create healthier workplace environments, healthier humans, and a better world. On this show, we explore real stories, practical insights, and honest conversations to help you lead yourself and others better. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in. Welcome to Leadership Matters. Today we're talking with Mike Braun, founder and owner of Pivotal Advisors. Mike, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Kaylee.
So I want to kick us off with a question around what's most important for listeners to know about you, Mike?
About me, I will start it this way. I have a very eclectic background. So if we go back through this, I was starting to think of all the jobs I've had, and I started in marketing. I moved to like technical support.
Wow.
I got into product management for like selection assessments. But in between each of those, I kept migrating back to sales. So eventually I got into a sales career, and I worked for a educational technology firm that had just went public at $75 million. That was like job out of school, just went public, very exciting. And through that journey,
And what was your role when you first started there?
marketing rep one.
Okay, marketing rep one.
Marketing rep one. And we were selling at the time kind of an acquisition the company had. The first or early on PC-based HRIS systems. And one of my main jobs was to not only market them, but once someone bought them, I helped them implement their systems.
Wow.
So you had to go through and figure out how are they going to do their benefits, and how do they do their applicant tracking, and what are their pay systems, and how do they do performance reviews. Think about everything around people.
Yes.
And you had to put that all in fields and make it work. And you know what it taught you? How to ask really good questions, because otherwise you don't know how to build it.
Sure. That
So
makes sense.
very early on, I learned the question side of that. And as that company grew, I moved into sales. Sales went very well for me. So we did the logical thing where you take a strong producing salesperson and make them the boss. That first move didn't work very well. But just in the quick background to stay on your question, I managed for a while. I moved up into broader sales management, and then kind of into general management. That firm went from that 75 million startup to 15 years later, we were $1 billion.
Wow.
So rapid, fast growth.
Yes.
After that, I spent several years in an HR consulting firm, which I didn't know very much about. So I learned all kinds of things in that. I worked for a startup, brand new startup, like VC money startup, software company that eventually we sold.
Oh.
I worked at a behavioral sciences company for a while. I owned apartment buildings. I actually owned a nursing home at one time with some other people.
I never knew that about you.
So just crazy, weird stuff from, salesperson, HR consultant, executive manager, executive coach, with a introduction to behavioral science, and then turned that into a consulting firm.
That is incredible. And I think it speaks a lot about how you bring such a complex lens to things because you've had such a diverse range of experiences. How many different roles or companies would you say you've worked with?
I was talking to my wife about that, getting ready to talk to you today. And I between trying to sell or working with somebody on a sales opportunity, consulting with people, implementing things, working in those companies, being partners to those companies. I think I have worked in somewhere around 4,000 companies in my career, in almost every industry, from healthcare to retail to cancer drugs to manufacturing to government programs, like all of them.
Wow.
And so you see things that are similar, and you see things that are different, and it's interesting as you apply it to your own leadership on how you can draw things from all those different experiences.
Can you share a story of how you've leveraged all that different experience, why that's been so valuable to you?
Really good example. So I was working with an association of plumbing, heating, and electrical contractors. So, this is Bob's Plumbing,
Sure.
and the association helps them mature in their businesses. So I'm working with these guys, and they're small businesses. They're trying to do 100 things. Things are going on, and you would look at something and go, "Well, you know what they do in the insurance industry for
Mm.
these things? They have a program that helps auto renewals or basically follow-ups happen in an automated way." And the next thing you know, all these plumbers are doing automated things. And wasn't brilliant,
Mhm.
wasn't my idea.
Mhm.
I just learned it from one industry and brought it to another industry, and then they took off with it. And there, I probably have hundreds of examples like that where you can just say, what can something else teach us that we can apply to us?
It's so powerful.
Yeah, it's great.
I want to go back to that first job right out of college.
Okay.
So you get your first job, you've got your fancy marketing rep one title.
Rep one, getting a paycheck for the first time in your life, right?
And then I love how you hit on this point of when technical folks do really well, the natural next step in the progression is more responsibility and people leadership
Yeah.
without real formal recognition that people leadership is a very different role than technical expertise or execution.
Yeah.
So, talk to us about that transition and what did you learn from that?
It's so interesting because you're very excited to be promoted and you get in this job, and I'm leading people where I was coming out of a peer group and I was one of the high performers in that peer group. So in your mind, and you're young, so you know everything,
Of
right?
course.
So my job was simply to tell everybody to do it like I did, and then if they weren't, start to do it for them.
Mm,
So I was just going to sell for all of the people, and
sure.
it was going to be great because I knew so much stuff, and it didn't go very well.
Oh,
Right? Imagine they don't like being told what to do. There's
yep.
different styles of people. They want to do it differently, and I'm telling them, well, just be like
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah.
Like that's all you have to do.
Be like Mike. I like that.
That didn't work, right? It worked for Michael Jordan. It didn't work for me. So it did not go well. And it was probably one of the first times, early in the career where all of a sudden you're not doing well. My team's not doing well.
Yeah.
People aren't performing. I had a little bit of turnover starting.
Mm,
And I was sitting there like, what am I doing? And I was very fortunate in this group of people that started and grew this company. I was surrounded by very effective leaders.
mm,
And probably the one thing I didn't even know it at the time, but turned out to be I'll call it a trait over the years, was to sit and say, I don't know what I'm doing.
mm,
I don't know anything. And sought out these people that had been leading for years. And I probably had a dozen mentors informally.
mhm.
And I would go every time and go, okay, well, what do you do about this? And how do you handle that? And Mary won't do this, and Bob won't do that. And how come these people don't know this? And they would look at you and go, well, you're now defining your job is to teach them all that stuff
Mhm.
or help them discover it.
Mhm.
So that was a really big thing, is where without, looking at how I would view it now, but in that moment to say, well, this is a completely different job, right? And it wasn't what you thought.
Yeah.
It was very different. And so many people will take 4 or 5 years, or worse, 3 or 4 jobs
Mm,
to realize they took a different job.
mhm. Yeah.
And it's just the churn is awful.
Yeah. That's such a powerful visual of why expect clarity of expectations is so powerful. Um, if you think your role is to come in and have all the answers
Yeah.
and tell people what to do, uh, you will act very differently than if you think your role is, well, what got me promoted is probably not the thing that's going to get me to this next level.
The next level. And there's great lessons. I was very fortunate to work for a boss one time. He was a man of few words, but he would say things that would just get you. And in that world, he said, I've got some advice for you. Like, okay, I'm all ears. He said, you're the answer man. You need to be the question man.
Mm.
And when you learn to be the question man and trust your people to figure out the answers that they believe in, your job's going to get easier. And then you walk out of my office.
Wow.
And they will go, I think that was like 7 semesters of school in like one statement, right?
So did you have that immediate impact? Did you was it?
Complete change for me.
Yeah.
Next meeting, I wasn't the talker.
Yeah.
I was the asker. How are we going to do it? Who's going to take the lead on that? Where is that going to go?
Yeah.
How would we get over there? What do you need to be successful? My language changed in one discussion.
That's incredible.
But you had to realize you didn't know your job first. Otherwise, you keep going thinking you're doing it and everyone else is wrong.
Yes. So you talked about this great fortune of being able to work with really effective leaders pretty early on in your career. As you reflect on all of the different leaders that you've worked with, how would you characterize the most effective leaders that you've had the opportunity to work with or learn from?
I'm going to think about it in 2 ways. I'm going to think about impact on a business and impact on people because I think they're different.
Mm-hmm.
And from a business success, sometimes we define our business success as we grew a certain amount, we hit the number, we made profit, we get wealthy, we raise the people up, the Amazons and the Jobs and the Bezos, like they're successful because they have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one definition of success, and we're all trying to run good businesses that serve our needs.
Mm-hmm.
I think the long-term success, as I'm, at the tail end of my career, is more about if you went back to all the people you impacted, what would they say about you?
Mm.
Where did you give a lesson? And I think that's the real leadership. Even in our work today, I see so many managers that spend their time saying, well, I'm disappointed in Mary, or John can't do that, or I don't think we should give it to them because I don't think they're capable. And you hear all these words about, I don't trust them yet.
Mm.
And when I hear the really good ones, and I was surrounded by these people, they would say things like, what do we need to get them so they can break through?
Yeah.
What do we need to do so they can be better?
Yeah.
And it's almost this, what is the possibility we can create for this person?
Yeah.
Instead of, they're not doing it, let's put them on a performance improvement plan, or put them in one of those kind of buckets where we're not sure, right? They're in the evaluate category. Yeah. And there's actually a guy named Ben Zander, who was the leader of the Boston Philharmonic, who later with his wife wrote a book called The Art of Possibility. And he says, how do you give everybody an A? Meaning, if I think you're good and I think you can do more, and I give you those opportunities, you're going to live into that. If I think you can, or I'm disappointed in you, or I approach you in a way where I'm challenging you or challenging you in a negative way,
Yes.
then you're going to be that.
Yes.
And by the way, I think that's true in parenting as well.
Absolutely.
But I think people live into it, and if we think the best of them, we get the best of them.
Yeah.
And in my coaching now, I say often to people, how many employees have broke through a wall, will do anything for you, perform at their best if they think you're disappointed in them all the time?
Yes.
Doesn't happen.
Yes.
So it's a mindset shift.
For sure. Barb Krantz-Taylor on our team talks about, whatever you're looking for is what you're going to find. And if you're looking for them to fail, they're going to fail. Or if you're looking for ways that they can succeed, that's what you're going to find. And that mindset is such a critical lens through which you're going to view the world.
Yeah. And I like your lens thing there, because it goes back to your success question. I think success is such a lens exercise. So one of my observations is we went on this giant run of, 75 to $1 billion.
Yes.
It wasn't a straight line. It's up, it's down, it's up and down. Well, every time, and we were publicly held, so we got shareholders and stock and all that. And every time we'd hit a year where we were down in the stock drop, what do you think happened? All the managers would get fired.
Wow.
All leadership would get fired. Whole new group of people would come in, and then we go on a new trajectory. And we went through 3 or 4 of those, and till the last ones, I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. I'm the next group now that's going to get fired when we don't keep going, right? So we sold the company, and I didn't go through that, but it was great. But one of the things that used to fascinate me is I'll make up numbers here, but let's say we had hit 100 million and we weren't getting to 105 or 110 or 120 fast enough. So the leadership would get fired. And let's say we would forecast 110. We're going to do 110 million next year. We do 108, which was up from 100. So we grew, but it wasn't 110. Failure, you're out. The new managers would come in. You know what they would do? They'd say, this year, we're going to hit 106. We'd hit 108. Same 108 million.
Yeah.
Completely flat.
Yeah.
But they said 106. The street loved it. The stock went up. They were great managers. And I would sit, I'm a young person. I'm in the middle of the organization going, isn't it really the same 108 million? Like, we didn't do anything.
Right.
But we set our success parameters differently. And I find that for entrepreneurs, right? You can strive to be a $100 million company or a $500 million company. Or we have clients they've been a $2 million company forever. They're perfectly happy with it.
Yeah.
So what's success? You have to decide, and then you have to lead towards that.
Yes. That's such a great example of begin with the end in mind. And that is going to help you evaluate how you got there and what you did as a result of it.
Yeah. And if I do now want to go from 108 to 120 or 150, I kind of have to break it. And that's hard. And it's really hard on the people.
Yeah.
Really hard on the people. I went through a couple of those where we had to break it, and it's very uncomfortable.
So what was that experience like for you, being in that break it environment? And what was the impact on the people?
Well, this was probably one of my big personal reflections. And we tried a bunch of new things. We tried to bring in new products. We tried to go to new markets, and we probably tried to do too much too fast.
Sure.
And, a lot of people part of that decision, but I was certainly one of them. And it didn't work. And it didn't work so much, we actually went backwards. So now the revenue's dropping.
Yep.
Expenses don't go away. So, profits are being squeezed. And the end result of that was we had to lay off 100 people. So now here's my job. I have to go tell these 100 people, we had a plan that we orchestrated. It didn't work, so you don't have a job. I still had a job. And that was my first one. I said, I never want to be in a position, and I'm not saying everything works, where the people aren't with me in what we're doing. Right? And it's harder as your organization gets bigger and you can't talk to everybody, but I want to live in a world where I am transparent so nobody's surprised by what's happening, because these people did exactly what we wanted them to. I gave them direction, they did it. They poured their hearts into it.
Yeah.
And the end game was, well, that didn't work. So you go tell your family, you go tell your people that we don't have a job anymore. We're going to have to do something different. And it was the most awful day or two of my life to have to tell all these people, I screwed up, sorry.
What would you have done differently?
I think what I have done since then, and again, plenty of mistakes still after this period, but I think part of it is just simply being very transparent with where we are. I'm an open book manager.
Yep.
I got to tell people where they are. They can see the numbers. We talk about what happens if we do well. We talk about what happens if we don't.
Yeah.
And, there were certainly other times where things did go well and you had to make decisions. And they weren't always part of all those decisions, but they were well communicated with. And I didn't look at surprised faces anymore. Disappointed, sure, but they saw it coming.
Yeah.
I would even tell them, look, if we don't turn this pretty quickly, you might have to do something. I will help you find your next job. I will get you resources. But I just did not want that surprise again.
Yeah.
Because I run into these alumni people and they still talk about that day.
Wow.
When they talk about a legacy, that's a day. Like, really, I did a lot of things. That's the day we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So those are big ones.
I'm so glad that you shared that, Mike. I think oftentimes it's so easy to look at someone like you and think that, back to your discussion earlier, it was just a straight line up. And the reality is no one has a straight line up. And in fact, the most successful people I've met are the ones who have these gut-wrenching moments, but they learn from it and they use that as fuel for their own growth and their own development.
And I think as a person who leads people, through those experiences, you really develop your own, I'll call them, people use the term value. I like the word guiding principles a little bit better because they're your decision-making points, not the poster on the wall that says teamwork and communication and those things. But the real guiding principles that say, when this comes up, what have I experienced that's going to help me make a decision here? And to really capture those
Mm,
and to really know as a leader, what are your true values or guiding principles when it comes to people?
yeah.
Because strategy can change, markets can change, products will change, pricing will change, all that stuff will change. And I don't want to minimize that. But for the people leadership part of it, it's really about, am I getting the most out of the people? Am I getting them what they need? And am I trusting them to do their work? And uh, when I go back and I see people that we haven't seen in a while, it's fascinating to me what they recall or what was important. And the ones that jazz you as a leader are the ones when they say, "Do you remember when you said to me?"
Mm.
And it was something like, "My hope for," I said this to one person, and she said, "You said to me," and I don't even remember this, right? We're at a cocktail party with the wine, and she said, "You never know what they're going to say." I'm like, "Oh no, what did I say to you?" And she says, "You said to me, one day you're going to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you.
Wow.
That's my goal for you."
Wow.
This is 20 years later, and she's telling me this.
Oh.
And you're like, geez, I probably should have said that to more people.
Mm,
But think how powerful just that is alone. I believe in you. I can see it. You need to start believing in yourself, and you're going to do great things.
yeah.
And that's what she remembered. And that's where you get into, how are you really successful or impacting people? It's, how did you treat them?
Yeah.
How did you treat them when it was good? How did you treat them when it was bad? How did you treat them when it was out of your control, which we still have to deal with?
Yes.
And as I've gotten older, it's even more important to say, yeah, the business did this or the business did that, but is this group of people thriving? Because if they thrive, unbelievably, the business does pretty well.
Yeah.
It just kind of does.
It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
That so beautifully illustrates the cascading impact of a comment or a conversation. Um, but that impact of a leader and how they communicate with people, to your point, treat people, how that impacts how they grow and develop as a human and as a professional.
Yeah. Well, and um, I guess for other people that might be listening to this, also in that is the power of not trying to do it yourself. So I'll
Mm.
go back to, I was surrounded by good leaders. I had people to reach out to, right? And if you listen to them and you took their advice, they're really smart people. I belong to, business owner groups and CEO groups. Super smart people, different businesses, different perspectives. You learn a ton. I was very fortunate. I got to go through executive education at Wharton.
Mm.
Um, Unbelievably eye-opening information about yourself.
Like what? What did you learn?
So the way the thing was structured at the time was, the morning was like, I'll call it business, right? It was strategy or marketing or sales or operations or whatever. The afternoon, we actually simulated, we were a small, like groups of 8 were a business, and we were all in an ecosystem, and we did stuff. You made your decisions, you put them in a computer, and then the next morning, a year had gone by, and you got to see the impact of it. So it was like a simulated
Wow.
ecosystem. So that was super fun
How unique.
because we're competing and we're doing all that. And then at night, we had, they called it like the organizational people night. We kind of called it shrink night because then you learn about yourself.
Sure.
And one of the nights we were supposed to be in a room. Well, they called us in individually. So this, and they had people observing us all the time. So the whole time during the afternoon when you're
Wow.
on your team, you're being observed.
Did you know this?
You knew they were there. You didn't know for sure what they were doing.
Okay. Yep. But they're intentionally
They're there.
observing.
And So now I'm meeting actually me and two of them because they're sitting there. I'm like, oh, so this is individual. Or like, where's the rest of the class? And they were giving us feedback about how we were showing up, either in class, but more in this simulation where it was like running a business and we all had roles and stuff. And said some nice stuff. This is making me feel good, but I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, right? And they said, well, you have one really bad habit. I'm like, oh, what is that? And they go, well, you have a tendency to interrupt people.
Mm.
I went, oh, and I am actually a reasonably empathetic person. So it's just like crushing now, right? I'm like, oh my God, who did I interrupt? I'm so sorry. And they go, well, it wasn't just one person. You kind of do it a lot. And I was like, oh my God, like how much? And she said, in that 2-hour meeting you had this afternoon, you interrupted somebody 72 times. 72. I'm like, oh, I'm such a loser. And this is school. And where it really hit me, and then later, as we're at the end of the whole program, the team actually gave feedback to each other. And several of the team said, God, you were great. It was fun. It was this great thing. But one guy said, but I'd never work for you. I said, why not? He said, because if things weren't going fast enough, you started to do my job for me. So I'm now reverting back to that early manager where stuff wasn't. And this was simulated work.
Yep.
I'm thinking, what am I doing to my bar team back home? Oh my God, I'm interrupting everybody. I'm doing their job. And again, I was probably mid-30s, late 30s as I'm going through this. But I was so grateful that the company invested in me to go get this experience and invested in me to join these groups. And so many times I think you're told, you got to have the answers and you can't be vulnerable and you can't do this and you can't do that. And my advice would be vulnerable and draw from everyone. Even if you have a person you look at and go, I don't know about Timmy.
Yeah.
You can learn something learn what not to do.
Yeah.
Learn from everybody. And particularly in the businesses we work with, in these smaller businesses, I think it's super helpful to get them exposure to other things outside these little worlds, because even though everything's very important, we get too myopic. And there's so much else out there. So
I really like that mindset of you can learn from anyone.
anyone.
I think that is transformational for people. If they can embody that mindset, it unlocks whole new perspectives, solutions, engagement, all the things.
Yeah, 100%. And so my one of my big things is with everybody is don't go it alone. Let's ask someone else.
Yeah.
They don't have to do everything they say just because we learned it.
Yeah.
But it's another perspective. So how do we bring these people in?
Yes.
And how do we do that kind of stuff? And I've just, each time I've moved on to another thing, and I tried to bring these lessons forward and gotten more specific about how I want to lead and who I want to lead and what we want to do and what I want that. People use the word culture. That gets used in a lot of different ways. But how do we really shape it into what we truly believe?
Intentionally.
How do I make it intentional and do the things that we're going to do?
So what was important to you, and I want to get into your leap into starting your own firm, but before we go there, what was important to you as you thought about creating a very intentional culture? What was the culture of your dreams?
Oh, there's so many. It's back to these guiding principles I was talking about. I should have brought them because I have them written.
Yeah.
But if I pick, I'm gonna give kudos to my mother, because one of the things she used to say, I was a pretty boisterous kid.
Who, you?
Yeah, right. And one of the things she said is, just because you say it louder doesn't mean you're right.
Oh,
And so I'll go back to that. So one of the things it's like, one of our cultural things is make your thinking visible. So you take a position and say, I think we should do A, Kaylee, you think we should do B. And we can argue, right? And if you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, we're going to argue about that for the eternity now, right? But what I've learned is if we stop and say, why do you think A? What got you there? How did we walk up and down that sort of ladder of inference that gets you to say, well, I thought this, so I drew this conclusion, so I made this assumption, so I got here. And I'd say, I was with you till we drew a different conclusion. So do we have the same information? And all of a sudden, instead of arguing over the right decision, and people like to win arguments and be right, you're now having a collaborative discussion about how do we make this decision? What information is important? What assumptions do we agree on? And you find even when people come into our organization, they find that weird
Mm.
until they are doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, well, so-and-so, what do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And half the time they're like,
Where's the right answer?
yeah, what am I supposed to say?
Yes.
Instead of saying, I just want to know what's in your head.
Yes.
Like, tell me what you're thinking.
That was a really hard thing for me to grow into at the Bailey Group because we have a very similar culture in respect to genuinely wanting to get all the opinions out on the table. And as someone who grew up really, looking for external validation and trying to figure out the way to get the A and trying to find the one right answer, those moments felt so challenging because I didn't, especially in an environment where there's a lot more seasoned professionals, you're looking at me for an answer. And it wasn't until I truly understood, A, that the curiosity was genuine, which it isn't always. Often is not. Thank you. But B, that I could give myself permission not to have the one right answer because there really isn't one right answer.
And think how empowering that is, not only to you, but like to the whole group. Now we're getting your real, true, authentic thinking on the table. You're not thinking about how people are evaluating that thing.
Yeah.
You're just saying what you think. And when we can take it that way and reinforce that we want that, that creates a very different culture.
Yeah.
And then if you follow that up, the other one we always say is we want to give each other direct feedback.
Mm.
So now you're my boss
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to give you some direct feedback. How's that going to go? I put a percentage on it. I'd argue 70% of the bosses don't want that feedback from their people or from their peers or from their other folks. And yet when you get good at it and you accept it, it's unbelievably powerful. And I'll go back to my silly story about interrupting people a lot. Which one of my employees was going to tell me that?
Right.
So thank goodness I was exposed to this thing that,
Yes.
said, be quiet, for crying out loud. And I still struggle with it, right? I have stuff to
hardwired
say,
in
and I
there.
have stuff to say, so you have to really work at it. But when peers or employees can say, hey, you dropped the ball on this, not you screw up, whether you say the words or not, it's the tone comes off as, you messed up. Think how different it is when it says, that's not like you. What happened?
Mm.
How do we prevent it from again? Well, my son was tired, or this happened, or there was a school problem, because, we forget, even though we work with people for 8 hours a day, they have lives.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more integrated than they've ever been before.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to have the grace to say it and then say, okay, if that ever happens again, what should we do so we don't drop the ball for a client, or we don't not deliver something, or we don't do what expectation that we set? Because that's unacceptable, right? I can't just say, oh, well, geez, okay, because it's not okay.
Right.
And as the leader, I don't need to be in that conversation all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Let the people talk.
Mm-hmm.
Kaylee, why'd that happen? Well, my son had the flu and this happened and another one had this and the car broke down. It's like, okay, what could you have done in that moment?
Yeah.
You could have called somebody. We could have called the client and said, hey, how do you want to deal with it? We got to manage it up front. So what would you do next time?
Yeah.
Those are culture setting.
Absolutely. And it sort of goes back to, you shared that conversation that you had that just totally changed your entire leadership journey. A conversation I had at one point was, boiling down leadership to the 3 fundamentals, which is set clear expectations. Exactly what you talked about with number 2, create the conditions for people to be successful.
Yep.
Get them the resources they need, get them the training they need, get them the feedback they need, get them what they need, or remove the barriers that are standing in their way between them and success, and then ultimately hold them accountable.
Yeah.
And that is what leadership is effectively. And when you can boil it down to that simple clarity, you can be a much more effective leader.
Absolutely. And let's dig into that last one because it's the term I hear the most.
Mm.
Let's hold people accountable.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say those words, and I say this sometimes when I talk to groups, and I'll say, when your boss comes up and says, I'm here to hold you accountable, what's your first reaction? Yeah, it's negative.
Well, it's
Right?
probably a fight or flight response
Yes,
for
right.
most people.
For most people. And I said, and yet we want accountability. So we have to define it. And I saw a definition once. I think the best definition I've ever seen of accountability is doing what you said
Yes.
and reporting the outcome of what you said in a timely manner. Right?
So
Very
good.
simple. That's
Yeah.
all it is. I did it. This is what happened. Here, we met the target or not, the expectation or not. And by definition, I've now held you accountable.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to add that other piece that says, and would we do it again or would we make an adjustment?
Mm.
Yep, I held you accountable. You reported your stuff.
Yep.
We know the outcome. That's accountability. Now is that what you wanted it to be? What would you have done differently if
Yeah.
you could do it again? If it didn't meet the expectation, was the expectation clear? And if we got more clear, what would do? Because now that's on me, right? I'm not
Mhm.
as clear as I wanted. And we have to take that next step to sort of then evaluate what happened and make an adjustment.
Mhm.
They're making an adjustment, we're making an adjustment. And when you can talk about those, you can make those adjustments so much faster and your improvement goes so much faster than when I evaluate. You go away feeling bad. I go away thinking, oh, Kaylee's never accountable. And we've accomplished nothing other than we missed the mark.
And the other thing it does is it positions you. I mean, that was such a great illustration of it moves from a me versus them to a we're in this together to
Yeah.
figure this out. We're on the same team, which is ultimately true. I just had this conversation with my husband the other day of we are ultimately partners in running our household and our family. And sometimes, especially in the heat of the moment, it can feel like a me versus you. And if you win, then I lose, or if I win, then you lose. And the reality is we are on the same team. And just like in the corporate world, we are on the same team. We're striving towards the same ultimate endpoint, ideally.
Ideally.
How do we work together to bring that about
Yeah.
in a high integrity way?
In a high integrity way. And for the most part, it's just, and is what I learned from my behavioral scientists, I'll bring this into it a little bit, is their definition of behavior is something you could see with a video camera,
Mm.
right? That's behavior. Or you could get into data a little bit, but largely it's a behavior. And we used labels like, oh, they're just not motivated. They're not a team player. They don't have a good attitude. And I'll say, well, what does that mean and how would you adjust that?
Mhm.
Well, I go tell them have a better attitude. It's like, okay, is that clear? What does
Mean
that
by a
mean?
better attitude.
Versus you came to the meeting late, you were unprepared, we had to back up and talk to you. Then you got on your phone, you missed part of a conversation, we had to back up twice. The video camera could capture that.
Mhm.
And when you can articulate that without judgment, which is incredibly hard,
So hard.
because I can say, and then you came late, and then you did this, and then you did that. Or I can say, this is what I saw. Did you see that? Do you understand that? Do you agree with me that that happened? Why did it happen? And what can we do about it in a non-judgmental, helpful way?
So, what have you learned about how to best do that in a non-judgmental way? Because I am with you 100% on that non-judgmental piece.
It's a mindset first.
Mm.
You have to almost assume positive intent, right? It's not like you to come to meetings late and disrupt them. So I'm going to say you didn't do it on purpose,
Mhm.
but you did do it.
Mhm.
So how are we going to talk about it?
Yes.
And I also find as leaders, we like to make statements like, you were late. Well, what's your reaction? You get defensive, yeah, but this happened and I had to do this, blah, blah, blah. I want to say, it didn't seem like you were on time,
Mm,
or we had started the meeting, were we on time? Or if I turn it into a question,
yeah.
it's less alarming
Yeah.
because I'm truly asking it. So I spent years, and again, it's an ongoing struggle. When you want to say something, you turn it into a question and it becomes the same. You're getting to the same content, but it's a very less
Different experience.
arming experience, right?
Yes.
You don't put people on the defensive and then you get good input,
Yeah.
but it's hard.
Yes.
Think of it as a question.
Yes.
We talk about this at home a lot. It's like, well, we could say it that way, or how could we say that differently? How could we turn that into a question?
Yes.
And then the conversation just goes completely different.
Yeah. The other thing I heard in that is talk about the behavior and not the person.
Yes,
It's not the person that's bad
it's
or unacceptable. It's the behavior that's
100%.
bad or
Describe it.
unacceptable.
Describe what we wanted. See if there's agreement in that that's the behavior. And then again, the behavior scientists will tell you it's all about positive or negative consequences.
Mm.
And if I do or don't do that behavior, what happens next?
Mm-hmm.
And um, in the business world, and I just read something the other day where particularly younger people now want more and more feedback.
Mm.
They're so used to feedback, right? I get likes, I get
Yeah.
this, I put my food out there and somebody tells me about it, right? It
Yes.
just, and then they come to the business world and they do something and they hear nothing.
Mm.
Nothing is a form of feedback. It says, didn't matter,
Yeah.
wasn't good enough, didn't use it.
To the current generation. The
For
thing
sure.
that's interesting about that is there was a time when nothing was
Was good.
good.
Yeah, not anymore.
And to some people, it still means good things. But then when you're interacting with different generations or different people who receive that differently, that's where things can get lost in translation.
100%. And we could probably do another 3 hours on generational differences and all those kinds of things, right? But at the basic human nature, I did something. I want to know, did I do it? Did I do it
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We see this in sales sometimes. We'll bring in a new salesperson. And the first, they're working hard, they're trying to learn. The first thing they do is they finally find an opportunity. And they bring it in, and it's not really the right customer for us. It's not really the right opportunity. It doesn't fit our kind of ideal profile. It's not the right business. And I watch so many managers go, well, I didn't want to kill their motivation. So we just kind of took it. And then it wasn't a great client and we didn't serve them well. And then they're upset and like nothing goes well. I said, why didn't you just tell them it's not the right kind? Like, go get a different one. That would have been that's the very first one. That wasn't right. Try again.
Yes.
And they will bring you good business. And then you go interview that same salesperson. You said, I literally talked to one salesperson who said, I brought them $2 million of business and they didn't want any of it.
Wow.
It's like, somebody's bringing in the wrong business.
Yes.
And we didn't have that conversation for 2 years. And then the person got let go for not performing.
Wow.
I'm like, I don't know if it was the person's problem.
Why do you think it's so hard for people to provide feedback?
We're never taught. When do you get
Mm.
taught that? We get taught a lot of things. We don't get taught providing feedback and we don't get taught receiving feedback ever. Like, what's that really like? And it can be awkward if you're a humble person or if you're a bold person or if you're a defensive person. I mean, we are all who we are. And you don't get taught how to do that. And I'm gonna go kind of local here. This sort of Minnesota, Scandinavian, passive-aggressive culture is, I just don't want to make anyone mad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you making them mad or are you giving them a gift?
Yes.
Imagine if the person, I don't know why I keep going back to this, it was not my finer moment, but didn't want to tell me that I interrupted people because she didn't want to make me mad.
Yeah.
I'd have done it for 7 more years
Yeah.
before someone finally told me.
Yeah.
It's like, it is a gift to get feedback and you have to absorb it, but we have to teach people how to do that, and that is cultural.
Yes.
It really is.
And then you talk about those power dynamics, which also is a challenge. You referenced, do you think any of my employees who I was paying were willing to take the risk to make that? Because that is often, it can be hard to provide feedback up when your livelihood depends on the quality of relationship with your manager, and you don't know how they will receive it.
Don't know how they're going to react, right? So that was another moment. My man, a few words boss. One time I don't even remember what happened. This is how it gets, right? And I came in and I was started on a rant. And I was like, well, this didn't happen, and my team's not telling me anything. And he said, why is that?
Mm.
And I went, I don't know. And he goes, I think you should go find out. And he walked out of my office, you know? So I have these great little simple things that he would do all the time. And I think, why is it that my team's not telling me? Because I'm not letting them.
Yeah.
I'm not giving them the condition where it's okay to say what they see or ask for something different than I'm getting them.
How did you figure that out?
Well, that was another moment. So I went back to the team and I said, I really acknowledged it in a meeting. I didn't set up a meeting for it, but we were in a meeting, and I said, you know, one of the things, I have a lot of ideas and I get excited, and I think sometimes I say things and I'm coming across as giving direction. And what I really want is feedback, and I really want feedback. So the next couple of weeks, you guys check me on it. I want to try and be a listener. And when I start going off, you just like tell me. And they did. And it was good. And we didn't make a big deal out of it, you know. Someone would go, and I'd say, okay. And it was hard because, you know, and but then you start realizing they already had the answer.
Yeah.
They already knew how to do it. Like, they don't need you as much as you think, but you need to set those conditions. You need to have that accountability, but give that feedback when necessary. And you need to do it now, and you need to do it in the moment, because they don't age well.
Yes. And you need to ensure that your behaviors are aligned with your words.
Yeah.
If you say you want feedback and somebody pipes up and gives you feedback, and then you immediately dismiss it or react negatively.
Explain it away.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're never getting it again. I'll give you a great story. This is a client story, not a Mike story, but we were working with a group, and they had 80 sales districts all over the country, so big company. And we were working with, let's call it the one that were ranked, you know, 78th, 79th, 80th. And we traveled to the number 3. And we were met by the general manager of the manufacturing plant. And we walked in the door. He says, hi. We walk in. We're not even to a meeting room yet. And as we're walking, it was winter, and, you know, I had kind of a carpet rolled out, a mat, and it had lumps in it. It wasn't smooth. And he stops. All of us are behind him. He stops. He looks at the receptionist. He's like, Mary, I see a safety issue. Do you? And she says, is it the mat? He said, yep. When we see it, what do we do about it? She runs out, pulls the mat straight, all good. He says, thank you. You just probably kept someone from falling today. And we walked down the hallway. Before we got to the meeting room, 3 instances of things like that. And then we walk in the meeting room, and the first thing I see is they haven't had a recordable incident in like 7 years.
Wow.
Simple, easy, all the time, see it in the moment. He didn't do it for her.
Yep.
He didn't scold her.
Yep.
He just asked the question.
Yep.
I see an issue. What do you see?
Yes.
And it was everywhere. Now, same thing with the sales team. If they turn, in fact, this was, I'm going to call her Elaine because that was her name. Elaine was fantastic. And because we had learned from some of the other people that the managers spent a lot of time. The salespeople would turn in an order, and the paperwork was messy, right? You know, sales guys, they're not very good at this stuff. And they would go out, and all the managers would tell me, well, I probably spend 25% of my time kind of fixing up their paperwork because I want them back out in the field, because that's where they do it. And I get to Elaine, and she says, if they mess it up, I didn't mess it up. I'm going to call them right back here. I said, you're going to pull them out of the field, cancel a prospect appointment to come back and fix their paperwork. And she goes, how many times do you think I have to do that?
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, this is the same
Point taken.
And she says, yeah, they come. I sit with them. We talk about why it didn't get done. We talk about you didn't finish your sale till this was done. Otherwise, the rest of the organization can't do what they want. She says, I spend no time, and you know where I get to spend my time? Out in the field helping them be better. Not doing paperwork in the back end because I let them off the hook because, they got to be in the field.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, I know why you're number 3.
Yeah.
Completely different than the 78, 79, and 80 plants. That's leadership.
Yes.
It's such simple, everyday stuff. My behavior scientists would tell me you have 1,000 opportunities a day to get feedback if you watch for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
1,000 opportunities.
They're everywhere. Big homework, like think waitress, haircut,
Yes.
stylist,
Yeah.
everywhere. You have thousands of opportunities a day to give feedback to somebody.
And it reminds me how behavior change doesn't have to be this massive 180-degree shift. It can be as simple as giving one piece of feedback today that you otherwise wouldn't have.
One piece, but I will say the real method, and they actually call it shaping behavior. It's one piece frequently over a period at a time till I get a different behavior. It's actually intentionally shaped over
Yes.
time
Yes.
by doing one thing a day.
Yes. And getting more comfortable stretching outside of your comfort zone.
For sure.
I mean, as I think about what holds people back from feedback, it's often fear.
Yes.
And what is the repercussion, and can I survive the repercussion?
Yep. And we are, as a human being, we get pretty defensive when people tell us stuff we don't want to hear, and it wasn't my fault, and it's blame, and read the newspaper for about 12 minutes, right? It's like everything's blame and everything's somebody's fault, and it's not our side, it's your side, and it's there, and I didn't know. Like we're taught that.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to turn around and say, no, this is actually good when we talk to each other and are helpful. I liked your family story. Like you guys are all on the same team trying to accomplish the same thing.
Yes.
We all do better when we win.
Mm-hmm.
And when we have individual stuff, we gotta nip that in the bud.
Yeah. So good.
Yeah.
So pivoting a little bit here.
Yeah.
Pivoting to pivotal.
Pivoting to pivot.
One of the things I love about your background in general is I think it really demonstrates your entrepreneurialism.
Yeah.
And if we had tons of time, I'd love to dig into where that comes from and why that speaks to you. And maybe you can weave some of that into your response. But what I'm really curious about, Mike, is you made a big leap of faith in co-founding Pivotal Advisors with your brother, Gary. And I'd love to hear, why'd you make that leap of faith?
Well, I was probably ahead on that curve. So I had left the corporate office and I had already worked as a partner in another HR consulting firm, which I got to learn things like change management and systems thinking and like stuff I would never been exposed to as a sales guy. You just hit numbers. That's all you do. And I learned a tremendous amount from those people. And then did that for about 6 or 7 years, and then we sold that. So I'm now in my second do something and sell it transition, actually third because there was a startup in there too. And then I said, okay, I've done that with other people. I want to do my own. And at the time, my brother Gary was at a e-commerce company when e-commerce was hot, right? And grew from, he was like employee 14 or 15 or something like that at a startup with almost no customers. That went to publicly held 400 million. So he and I were both on these he was the sales guy, got promoted into sales manager, moved up to executive sales manager. And we'd be like, I don't know, what are you doing? And so
very parallel.
Very parallel. I was a little, I'm a little older, so I was a little ahead of him. These conversations would always happen on the golf course because we played in a, Thursday night league. And I would get there and I'm ready to go. And he'd come in the parking lot, flying, putting one shoe on, trying to get to the first tee for tee time, coming in hot, not playing well. He's on the phone the whole time. And finally one day I said, what are all your people calling you for all the time? Why do they need you at 6:30 at night or 7 o'clock at night on the golf course? Well, they need pricing. They need this and they need this and they need this and they need this. And I said, why don't they have that stuff? Why do they need you? He's like, well, what do you mean? And then these started becoming Thursday night coaching sessions without really knowing they were Thursday night coaching sessions. And I said, next time they call in, instead of answering their question, just say, well, what do you think you should do? Phone rings, he goes off, and I'm like, oh my God, we're getting beat, And he comes back and he said, I did it. I said, and what happened? He goes, They knew exactly what to do. They don't need me. And that was the start of that. So that had happened. Back to your question, I had just exited something. I was looking for my next adventure. He was flying all around. His kids were still young and he was burnt. And we said, let's do something. We talked about open golf franchises. We talked about all kinds of different stuff. And then we backed up and said, what do we know? What is it that we have experiences that can be helpful for someone? And it came down to, this is probably a good way to say it, what we talked about. People that get into these leadership jobs, particularly in small to mid-sized companies, because I had the benefit of watching 7 other sales leaders and how they did it, or going to senior lead. There's one. There's one in the company and they got a few salespeople, or there's 2, but they're on other, opposite coasts or something. And we did some research, and that position was failing or turning over every 18 to 20 months. So you're in an organization, you hire somebody, you onboard them, you get them in, it doesn't work out, you fire them, you start it over. By about the 3rd time you've done that, the salespeople don't even care who the manager is anymore because it's churned so often. They just go do whatever they do. And it was just costing these people millions and millions of dollars. And so we talked and said, so what did we learn that could be helpful? And in those rise and dip, something different happened in the dip. And it would rise and it would dip. And then that group of managers, we just documented what we did in the dips and how we managed that. And we slowed the roll. And for many of our clients, their managers have been there for years now, and they get that continuity, and now they're performing. And you know what? It's the same salespeople that didn't sell enough, oftentimes. It's like, so our belief then became, there's millions and millions of dollars spent on training salespeople how to sell. And now in the AI world now, 77 more tools I can get to be more productive and more this and more that. And one of the observations we had, I don't want to say that stuff's not important because it's helpful, but we said, but the catalyst is the leader. And I don't care if you're a district leader or a branch leader or a senior VP, the team goes as the leader goes. And I remember sitting in a seminar, like a manufacturer seminar. And I think it was with the lawnmower company, Toro. And I don't even remember the gentleman's name. He said, we put all of our salespeople and all our distribution salespeople, so thousands of salespeople that are going to sell Toro in all these different markets, through, I think he said 12 million, but I don't know, that millions of dollars in sales training. We got very little change. Because we spent $1 training the managers on helping them implement what they're learning. And that stuck with me. So we said, how do we have a focus on that leader to help them create the conditions, put in the systems, and learn how to lead people in a way that gets the most out of them to now progress the sales function forward. And so we really took that approach. We didn't try and train every salespeople. We didn't try and bring every one of the latest tools that you could do. We're certainly familiar with them and all those. But the idea was, how do we help the leader build and lead a team? And I remember early on, so this was our hypothesis, right? We've had these journeys, we documented, we're going to go out and talk about it. And I was sitting with the person and they said, well, like, how do you know this is going to work? We're going to hire you guys. How do we know this is going to work? And I said, well, I'm going to share a story. So I'm going to go back to my man of few words boss. And he said, one time he called me into his office and he said this. So I'm now relaying this to my prospective client. And I said, think about this. Who's your best salesperson? Mary. Who's your second? Timmy. I said, who's your last? Bob. And then you could argue about the ones in the middle. I said, okay. What do you like about your sales leader? Didn't get much. I said, okay, so we're not confident in our sales leader. So what would your world be like if you had 10 Timmys, 10 of them, that were just like Timmy, with a leader you trusted that could help Timmy get even better? He's like, oh, I can't even imagine what that would be like. That would be like euphoric. And I'm going to go back to the way I heard it. So my boss says that to me, and I'm like, oh my God, 10 Timmys would be awesome. And he pats me kind of patronizingly, says, well, now you understand your job, and walked out of my office.
Go
I'm
find
like,
those 10 Timmys.
I think I just learned my job is to build a team.
Mm,
It isn't to do the work. It isn't to figure out everything. It isn't every little detail that I think I need to know in a management meeting so I have an answer.
yes.
It's to go build a team of 10 Timmys
Yes.
led by a person who I trust, who we are aligned, who will make them even better.
Yes.
If I could put those two things together, that would be great.
It's transformational.
And I did it in an organization to the point where I'd sit in meetings and these managers would do they were great. They ran the whole business. In fact, I even went to my same boss. He said, the team's functioning pretty well. The managers are doing everything because we had a couple of middle management layers. He said, I don't know that you need me. Like, I don't know that I'm adding now. And he did another one and he said, good, you've got your operational job figured out. Now you've got to go figure out your strategic job. And he walked out of my office. So this theme happened a lot over a period of time. And I went, okay, I don't know anything about that. Like, I'm executing. I don't know anything about how are we going to go from, 600 million to $1 billion. And it's like, okay, but now I have time to do that because my team is working. So now I can go figure out what's next.
So how did you sharpen the strategic side of yourself, your strategic capabilities?
Sought out everybody I thought could be strategic. We had another gentleman in the business, and I said, I went to him, I said, people talk about you as a good strategist. I'm not even sure I know what that means, but can you teach me? And he took me under his wing. These people were fabulous. And we would meet every couple months and have lunch or whatever. And he asked me a question one time. He said, if you look at our business, what would your strategy be? How would you grow? And my thinking was so incremental. Well, we could add one more person here, or we could do another thing here, or we could shift this, or we could shift that. And I went, I believe this is strategic, right? Really, it's, I don't know, more money into the same execution, right? And he said, I look at the business this way. We have plants, we have service people, we have a customer service department, we have a sales organization. What else could we sell, service, and take advantage of that isn't what we're making or producing today? And if someone were to start a brand new business today, how hard would it be to duplicate what we have? It would be hard. We're an $800 million, $600 million company with all these resources already sitting there. What else could we do with what we've got? And in 5 minutes, he's like, well, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And I'm thinking, yeah, my brain doesn't work that way right now. And just looking at things as assets you have to leverage, and not extensions of what we know, changes your whole strategic output. And then I was very fortunate. Like I said, I got to go to some big programs, and I got to be involved with people at Stanford, and I got exposed to I was an executive coach for people in the Fortune 500 area, and then you learn what they do. So a lot of it was osmosis. But and then I studied strategic frameworks and all that, which I think are helpful to get your thinking going. But it's, what can I do with what I've got that keeps giving me a competitive advantage? And that's a simple way to put it, but it changes, again, that lens of how you look at stuff. And when your lens changes, the world opens up.
Yes, absolutely. It also displays how what you think is people leadership or strategic thinking. When your definition of that expands, you can then expand.
Yes. And then the tricky part is, okay, so now we've expanded. The people are all still doing this, and now we've got to get people to do different things. And that's, again, we could probably have another whole episode on managing through change and all the mistakes I made in those worlds, and getting too far ahead of your team, and then they don't understand why we're doing things, and they're all complaining, and you're mad at them, and you have to stop. Every time I find myself getting frustrated with my team, you have to turn around and go, what am I doing or not doing? Because if I'm frustrated, I know they're frustrated. Something's not communicated. We're not aligned. We haven't given them what they need. And I just keep going back to, if I want them to be their best, what do I need to give them? And if I'm not getting it, I can't blame them. I need to help them.
And what that does is it gives you agency. in that
Great word.
situation.
That's a great word. Yeah. And that's the way to look at it. And I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. This is an ongoing battle for anybody that manages people and all the styles and now the generations. And now we got AI doing stuff. And like the pace of rate of change is so dramatic. Um, it's going to take all of our energy to continue to stay in that agency mode and to really help bring the best out of people. That's really what your job is. Otherwise, you don't need a leader. Just put the rules out there and let them do it. And by the way, if we don't need more than that, AI is just going to do it.
Yeah.
If it's just work, AI is going to do it. AI is not going to lead people. It can do jobs. It can do amazing things.
Yeah.
It cannot lead people, and it can't help them through their troubles, and it can't help them through their defensiveness, and it can't help them see what we see in them sometimes.
I absolutely subscribe to that thinking. I know others don't, but there's a human element behind the world of work that AI just can't see and feel and relate to in genuine, authentic ways.
I agree, and I will say this. I think it's going to change how we work, and they even use the phrase, but there is going to be places where you need a human in the loop, and people leadership is going to be one of them because it's intuitive or it's learned. I will say I am not one of those people, and we know some that they were the leader of everything from the time they were 7. They just gravitated to those jobs. I'm not one of those. I'm a learned leader. I had to go learn how to do it, and still learning every day. And I think AI is going to shift where the work is and where the human interaction needs to be. And we have to figure out in those places where it's important, how are we our best? And you have to invest in it. And again, you talk to anybody who goes to work every day, 40, 50 hours a week, 60 hours a week, whatever it is, we go home. We don't spend time getting better. So how do we as leaders then give our people the time or invest in them in a way that they can do that? So again, we only spend a little bit of time on Pivotal, but one of the things we're trying to do for people in that sales leadership position is build a community that they can get to in an intense way, in a passive way, however, but where is the place they can go to learn, be safe, be vulnerable, and do that? So we're trying to create that for anybody who's leading the sales team.
Yeah. And it reminds me of the work that we're really entrenched in, which is catalyzing growth for the humans behind the work.
Yes.
And we've had the good fortune of working with you for, what's it been now, 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, at least 5, probably.
Actually, it's probably been longer because Arlo, my oldest, is about to turn 6.
Wow. Yeah, at least 6. Wow.
And one of the things I really appreciate about you, and it probably is due to both your diverse background, but also all this behavioral science background, executive coaching background, is I think you really do take a coaching lens to the advisory services that you're engaged in. And it's not, I have all the answers and I will give you every single thing. I have a lot of experience. I have my own hypotheses. Let's partner together and process some of these challenges. And have me say what needs to be said, which you may agree with or disagree with, but I'm still going to put it out there.
Absolutely.
And tell you what I think you need to hear so that you can take back your agency should you choose to.
Yeah, so that you can do it. I like that. Take back that agency and then go do it. And, you've used the phrase a couple times. What is the right answer? I don't know that there are right answers. There's hypothesis. There's best guess with the information I have in time.
Exactly.
And then there's action.
Yeah.
And then there's adjustment.
Yeah.
Because we're never right. We're close. We're in the ballpark. We learn. We're way off.
Yes.
The faster we can recognize and adjust, the more progress we'll make.
Yes.
Than sitting there trying to be right.
Yes.
You're never going to be right.
There's a Harvard, I think it comes from Harvard Business Review article about exactly this. And they talk about it's not possible to know the one right answer because there is not one right answer.
Right.
And there's no way to prove that there is one. The right answer is exactly to your point, making the best decision you can at the time with the information that's available at the time, and then fully committing. Not looking back, not looking to the side, creating the conditions that you can to maximally be successful given this choice that you've now made?
Yeah, just visually putting that, we talk about it and we go, once that decision's made, you turn your hat forward and you make it happen,
Oh,
right? Up
that's so
until
good.
then, as a leadership team, we can debate, we can have different opinions, we can argue, but once we decide, we all have to turn our hats around and we have to say, all right, now we've committed, we got to make it happen.
So good.
Yeah.
So back to Pivotal,
Yeah.
what's it like working with your brother?
It's a lot like living with your brother.
Which you haven't done in
Many years now, but people ask that question, and sometimes we say, well, we're professional arguers because we've been arguing since the day he was born, right? It has been fantastic. And people warned us, good in business with family. We set some good parameters in the beginning about where we wanted the business to be. If we said very early on, if anything about this starts to hurt our relationship, we're done. Because I'm not going to wreck a relationship over business. I'm just not. There's too many choices in life to go do things. So we said that.
guiding principle.
Yeah, that's another one of those, right? And we set parameters about what we wanted it to be, and we swore, this is pretty interesting, it was going to be two of us. We were never going to have another partner. We were never have equity because we trusted each other implicitly. I would trust him with anything. Gary's one of the most honest, down-to-earth people you will ever meet. So there was never going to be a situation where we didn't have each other's best interest in mind.
Wow.
Even if you had different opinion, you knew that at a core family level.
Wow.
And that made it easy. And our styles are different. Our skill sets are different. So also pretty early on in the business, we realized he likes being out, meeting new people, generating new business. He loves the part where you're out in the community, and I like building deep relationships and being with people for a long period of time and really trying to see the gains that we get. So we quickly separated into roles, which was good. And we just said, we can both have opinions, but those are your decisions and these are my decisions. And we didn't, we threw them back and forth, but it was clear who got to decide, and then they owned it, right?
That decision-making clarity is
They're
huge.
really big, really, right away. I think that was really important. So, and we could, in fact, it was funny because we had a third employee. It was just the two of us and a third employee pretty early on. And we would be at each other. And she's like, are you guys mad at each other? What are we going to do? And it was like, no, this is how we debate.
Yeah.
And then we had to learn as more people came into the system. It's probably not an effective way to debate like two brothers, that shared a bedroom at one point in life, right? But he's highly skilled. He does a great job. I trust him. And we together are also very good at giving each other feedback, right? So there isn't a problem because like deep down, you love the guy.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything to hurt him. So if I'm telling you this, I'm telling you this out of love, not out of, some positioning or something like that. And that just expanded into all the employees. It's just the way we worked together just became sort of part of that culture. And we liked it, right? It was that open culture. We're here to help. And, but it was good in the business. So we grew, but we swore it's going to be the two of us. We're going to grow this nice little practice. And we're going to help people who went on a similar journey that we had some familiarity with. And that worked pretty good. And we did that for a few years. But a lot of the knowledge was with Gary and I, or the people. And even though we had written some stuff down, you started to hit the plateau when we started to hire new people. It was very hard to transfer the information. So probably the next big trajectory decision was when we sat back and said, when we were thinking big, right? If we had 200 people here, how in the world are we going to translate style, content, approach, principles to all these people? And it was never until we write it down. So we said, okay, so what we have to do is we have to document how we do things. We have to make it easy for people to learn the approaches. We have to make it easy for people to be here. So we started making content and videos and all kinds of things to show how we did our work. And then we realized very quickly when you spend your time doing all that, you really don't get any new business.
Yeah.
And so then we hit the there's actually a book out from a friend of mine called The Founder Trap.
Mm.
And Greg Alexander, and he says you hit that bottleneck where you just can't do it all. And at the same time, we had some young people, Steve Pace and Elizabeth Giese, join us.
Mm.
And Gary and I are going, remember when he said we would never have another partner? I think these people could be our partners, and I think they could make us better. And of course, they joined the business and made it remarkably better. But again, you had to expand your horizon and change your original kind of a thing. And then we had to divide duties. So we went through the thing, but we had to make a decision. We don't want to just have a nice practice. We want to have a business, and we want to be able to do this. So, long after we don't want to do it anymore, we can continue to help people in these sales leadership positions. So that journey continues.
Mm.
And but it was a big one. But yeah, I would trust Gary with anything I have in my entire life ever, and that's probably at the base of it. Why we've worked well together.
Yeah, that trust is so critical. And I also heard mutual respect and appreciation for one another, and maybe not even despite of the differences, but because of the differences and the different skill sets and experience and lenses through which you see the world.
Yep, we embrace them. Things would come up, and I'd say, boy, I could probably take a shot at it, but he would do it better. So you're doing that one, or I'm doing this one, or whatever. And again, you know them very well because you've literally known them your entire life, right? And that part went well. And then we just tried to bring that atmosphere into the rest of the people, so they felt that.
Well, it's neat to hear how meaningful and successful that's.
Yeah, it's working for us, right? We nobody's calling me Bezos. We have a nice business. We help our clients, and I'd like to be able of this chapter to say, at some point, we helped thousands of sales leaders learn their job and avoid some of the mistakes we made along the way.
It's really neat.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending time. It's been a joy and a pleasure talking with you, Mike.
Always, I could talk to you for hours, Kaylee. It's fantastic. We could go on and on and on and on.
We will have to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Leadership Matters. If today's episode resonated with you, would you do me a favor and share it with someone you care about? To learn more about the work the Bailey Group is doing in the world, check us out at thebaileygroup.com or follow us over on LinkedIn. We love sharing useful articles, helpful resources, and valuable tools to help you expand your leadership capacity. Like and subscribe, and join us next time for more honest conversations.